In this session, we explore AI for fashion trend forecasting.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session. I'm Jaana, the founder of TrendStop, and we are really excited to have you with us today. Everyone, of course, is talking about AI, and for fashion businesses, wouldn't it be amazing if there was a way how AI can forecast fashion? It would make things a lot simpler. But a lot of companies have already tried, and at least the regular AI based on ChatGPT and such is not able to forecast fashion. But today we're going to talk about a really exciting innovation that can help with that really effectively, and something that's a bit of a game changer in the market. So I'm excited, and I hope you'll be inspired and excited by these new approaches. We don't often bring on guest speakers, so if we do bring on someone, they are someone really special. So today I'm really excited to let you know that we have Martin Lucas joining us, who is co-founder and head of mathematical psychology at Gap in the Matrix. And they have developed a really interesting behavioral emotional intelligence AI tool, which is able to tap into human emotive decision making and purchase behavior. And that's really, really exciting. So we'll get into it straight away without any further ado. And we've got an exciting giveaway at the end of the session. And you can then also ask some questions. And Martin is here to answer for you. So let's get started.
So let's begin with some eye-opening statistics on the current consumer landscape. Fashion consumers are buying up to 70% less. This is due to financial or sustainability considerations, or because they no longer want to support throwaway fashion on a daily basis. In terms of product, 25% of products deliver 70% of sales. And 7 out of 10 styles are not selling without discounting. This then impacts the sales results that companies are getting. And the fashion industry collectively ends up dumping 92 million tons of textile waste annually. On the marketing and communications side, 98.81% of ads don't engage consumers. Because of incorrect consumer and trend targeting, these approaches are not driven by consumers' future expectations. As a result, companies are effectively 70 to 98% focused on what consumers don't want. And AI can't help, because at the moment, ChatGPT, for example, is simply an ultra-fast search tool combined with a predictive type tool, and that can't really know what consumers want. And AI imaging, where users input a variety of prompts to generate visual imagery and videos, is not working because the images created don't connect to what consumers actually want either. So neither of these tools have any human behavioral intelligence inherent in them. And if you stay until the end today, you'll hear about a fantastic opportunity to receive complimentary new targeting insights on your specific consumer.
So let's then look at what can be a better approach if these current methods are not working well. We'd like to introduce a really exciting new tool called the Trend Matrix, and it's a collaboration between TrendStop and Gap in the Matrix, where human expertise and emotional intelligence AI come together. So Gap in the Matrix has developed this advanced emotional intelligence AI tool, which can actually individually target consumers and give you really specific insights on your specific target audience. And then TrendStop brings the global consumer and innovation trend expertise to forecast and project what that means for the future. So this method is really showing some incredible results so far, and it's completely transforming that targeting problem we mentioned in the beginning. So here we are seeing a lot of numbers on the page, some sales results of how sales have really doubled, or there has been growth not only in sell-through, but across measurables, across categories. And then on the marketing side, how, again, whether it's email marketing and bringing more revenue out of that, or omni-channel targeting and creating various models to grow, this approach is really showing amazing results. And then customers are really impressed. They have really seen some unprecedented growth and engagements. Here we have a snapshot of some of the companies who have experienced this so far. First, we'll show you a quick case study, what this transformation looks like, and then Martin's going to come on and speak about how it all works. So here's a brand before the Trend Matrix treatment. So there's things that you don't want going on. So dated products resulting in reduced sales and deep discounting. Consumers are not particularly excited. There's an unengaging digital image, and the engagement is not particularly exciting. And similarly, the lackluster social media and brand image. So everything is just a little bit unexciting to the consumer, and the brand is unable to grow and broaden the audience. And then there's also social media engagement. So this is the before situation. And then let's take a look at what's happened. So after the trend matrix, a year later, step 1 was the correct consumer targeting. So really identifying and understanding who that target consumer is and really pinpointing very specifically who they are and what they want. And then from there, it's much more straightforward then to provide that correct product direction and link to those future forecasts. What does that audience want to see and buy? And from that direction, it's then fairly straightforward to do a rapid product elevation to meet the target audience's needs, and equally do a rapid marketing elevation as well. And then the whole brand image and the social can be elevated in a very holistic way and always in line with what that target consumer wants. And then it's even easy to add sustainability or other meaningful initiatives into the mix because it's so clearly understood who that consumer is and what they want. And here is just a snapshot to the before. So really how transformative and holistic this approach is. And the before is typical approach that brands are just doing all sorts of haphazard things, and it is what it is, how business has been done well until now. But you can see if you compare these two that this is really untargeting and it's a bit messy and a bit fuzzy, and there's nothing that really stands out as something like super exciting. And that really directly results to those bad targeting results that we just spoke about. And then another great outcome of this is as well just the non-stop parade of hit product. So we can see here a sequence of beautiful, exciting products that have been targeted to that customer, and also the corresponding marketing and communication approach that everything is just together. It's exciting, it's amazing, it's current, it's relevant. The whole approach is just working in unison. And that's then creating some pretty amazing results as well. So here we have an example how this brand grew their revenue in double digits, not once, but twice in a row since starting to work with this approach. So often brands say that, oh, we have lackluster sales because the economy is bad, or it's election coming up, or the weather is not right. But the real reason why those lackluster results keep happening is because the stuff just isn't targeted enough, and it isn't targeted holistically across the board. So if that has been exciting for you so far, then let's bring on Martin to talk about how it works. So Martin, welcome. We are really excited to have you with us.
Thank you. Very excited to be on. It's an absolute pleasure with the audience that we've got today. So we're going to have some fun. The first thing that I want you to do is that we're going to be looking at the why of human decision making. So I'm going to be breaking down. We're not going to talk too much about science. We're not going to talk about what goes on behind the scenes too much, but I'm going to give you some really key insights that's going to help you not just understand the things that we do, but give you a focus on your consumers, your brand, your products, your stores, if it's applicable to you, and your digital experience. And the great thing about what we're doing is we're talking about the trend matrix, but this has been 10 years in development. So we did 4 years of R&D to understand why 98.81% of ads don't get engagement. Because the thing that you've got going on in the world is the complete lack of how humans understand one another. So the average human makes 36,000 decisions a day, of which only 2% of them are conscious. So if you just pause and think about that, that's a really big number, but only a very small percentage of it is the things that you're actually attracted to, the things that make you turn up your head and get your attention. And that's one of the gaps that you've got going on, because it directly correlates with where true innovation sits, which is if you can break past that 98.81% of ads not being engaged with, and you've got the same stats when it comes to footfall, which we'd love to share with you if you wanted to take up one of those complimentary sessions with you, and you can actually understand not just footfall, but digital experiences, different channels, but beyond anything, how and why your different consumers are making decisions and what different personalities you're actually dealing with. What do I actually mean by that? So we are averaging 76% above your standard matrix. So you would understand the most innovative and coveted products. So that's a creative concept point of view. But equally, you'd identify the 2% decision-making triggers causing consumers to engage and buy. We normally start with taking away the things that are blocking that type of thing, because it's quite simple to start making an impact. And that comes from knowing what products mean psychologically for each individual consumer. And then you can cluster them together into lots of different groups. So whether that's going after new audiences, which we would call segmentation, or consumer groups, which would be your existing consumers. But at the end of the day, everybody on this call, because we're talking about fashion, it's a huge part about the emotional part of what drives decision making. And that's a huge part of that 2% zone, because a massive part of it is the emotional context. And we humans deal with a massive amount of emotions, 118 different emotions. So the more that you can understand the identity that people are wanting to represent, the more you can connect your brand to them. So it's not just what you create, but actually how you talk about it, how you present to people, because that's what identity means to people. And it means that you know what, where, and when, and how to evoke engagement, meaning, purchase, and purpose. Because everyone's got a purpose behind what they're doing. They might not always know it, because when we talk about people not trusting their instincts, it's often a bit of a fallacy, because once you understand that your instinct is just the output of thousands of sums that your brain goes through, and then you just go, I want that one. And you can't always explain why you want that one, but that's what we do with the trend matrix, is we can understand what it is that's driving consumers psychologically, and therefore the emotional intelligence about how they make decisions. And that brings about true one-to-one consumer engagement. You'll notice the word personalization is not in there, it's an overused word. But what we're really talking about is understanding how to bring more revenue through your door, but in a more profitable way. It's not about spending more money. It's actually about optimizing what you're doing in a simple way to understand what personalization really is. And as we go through that, and I'm happy to cover questions at the end, but we're talking about really deep insights. You could imagine like 4 years of R&D and what we had to bring in and codify, and also what we had to toss out. And we end up with 1,500 different data points, over 150 different decision-making variables. For each client that we work with, we build 210 different audiences. They've got variables to it, so it'd be different for every audience. Same with the conversion trigger words, which I'll show you a little bit later. And then probably most importantly for people on this call, I would take a guess that when you're talking about the future, we've got a predictive model that breaks down all of your SKUs, whether they're live or coming, and we call it from style to stitch. And it allows you to really deeply understand what consumers are going to want tomorrow in your catalog, whether the products are launched or not, and equally any gaps that you might have. So it becomes extremely powerful to know what that looks like. And then you've got what is just absolutely beautiful with the case study that you saw earlier, which I'd love to have that personal skill, but I don't, is how to make things so beautiful that it attracts people, because that's what converts people. If you understand me, speak to me the way that I want to be spoken to, show me the things that give that kind of allure and excitement, and then you've got the ability to close the sale with people. And this is the type of thing that you could get if you wanted to take up that complimentary offer that we'd show a little bit more at the end, as Jaana mentioned. Shopping personalities still fascinate me, and we've got a core of 7 different ones. Now, I'll give you insight about one, which is low engagement, high value purchase. So we're in a world where too often we think that anyone that hasn't bought or hasn't engaged for, say, 3 months has lapsed. And the reality is, if you understand different shopping personalities, you'd know who is actually lapsed and who is actually just behaving the way that they should. Because low engagement, high value purchase is massive, particularly in the luxury fashion space, but they often get turned away because you're contacting them too often, and it can feel a bit salesy and you push people away, when actually what they want is to pitch up once every 3 months, once every 6 months, and they'll spend a ton of money with the brands that they love and then disappear. That's just their shopping behavior. That's their personality. The one that tends to be most interesting to people and they find really entertaining is the difference between an aspirational fashion shopper and a fake fashionista. But you'd have to apply for one of the free insights for me to show you a little bit more about that. And then on top of that, we've uncovered a bunch of different USPs that we believe we're the only people in the world, having gone through 60 different clients and testing and all these years of success to get to that, or testing to get to the success of 76% growth, is impulse. So we've all got an impulse in our brain. So we might be impulsive about certain things, or we might be impulsive about others, or we might just be impulsive about everything, or impulsive about nothing. You'll know yourself well enough to know which areas you might be more impulsive in, or which industries and things like that. But what it allows us to do is it allows you to understand, based on impulse, based on personality, who strongly dislikes discounts. So who you're turning away with discounts. And we hear it all the time that we're in an over-discounted world, and that's got a lot of truth to it. But there are people in your database that absolutely love discounts and will only buy on discounts. And understanding the difference between them is huge. And that allows you to understand different collections, what's selling, what demand looks like. And at the end of the day, what is emotional intelligence? It's understanding how to complement and enhance what you're already doing, because you understand what your audience wants. That's the hugely powerful thing. If you connect that, you feel stronger. You feel like you've got that control of what you could be doing and what your audience wants more of and less of. And what you would get from that complementary test that we spoke about is the areas that we focus on. So your core customer characteristics, you would understand what they are, what your consumers' identities are, their buying behaviors, their habits and patterns, the why of discounts, so whether you should be discounting, how long sales should actually go on for, because everyone needs to have a sale at certain points. But my favorite when we did all the R&D from 2015 to 2019 was the mid-season sale. I still can't figure out what that is. And they ran out of creative options, so they just called it a mid-season sale. So it's about understanding how to intercept demand. And the big thing that's always surprised me is how little brands understand about their SKUs. So I'm a massive sneakerhead, but the sneaker companies that I spend money with, which is a select couple, I've got a preference. They should know by now, if they send me black sneakers with white stitching, I don't like the overlay, so I'll never buy it. So you can imagine if you're coming to certain sites all the time, you're buying directly from them, as I do with sneakers, I'm layering all this shopping psychology, all this preferential data with me, but nobody's actually hosing the SKUs to understand what SKUs can mean to people. And that's what I'll show you next, because I think that this, again, as we build up the audiences and the insights, I hope that this will be appealing to the people on the call. So all these different audiences, but what you're really trying to do is create a subsection to understand all the people in your database and when you could and should be contacting them. So we're not talking about one-to-one personalization. We can do that, but at the start, it just becomes very simple. You segment your audience in two, and then you treat them the way that they need to. And when you see success, you grow and expand it. So automation can come with everything we do, but we put the human first. So when we're talking about AI, it's really putting up the guardrails that say, okay, if we take away the bias of what a brand's doing, take away the bias about what our copywriters do, which comes native, by the way, which is a really important point. So what you're actually doing is controlling the experience to say, this is what your audience wants. So if we take away our own bias, which is a problem in every brand, it's a problem in every agency, it's a problem in every supplier. We just don't know that. We don't realize that we're controlling it too much by saying, well, I've got a strong preference for this product, therefore it's going to feature more in our content. We don't realize that. We don't realize that our designers are doing it. We don't realize our copywriters are doing it. We don't realize that our strategy is doing it. And if you look at the top left in the blue circle, you've got an audience very simply that loves shoes. They're highly loyal, high impulse, medium income. So just think about that for a second, because then if we look at the right-hand pink bubble, only buys clothing, highly loyal, high impulse, medium income. If you have those two different groups, it's very clear that what you've got is people that think very similar, but actually it's a product preference that they've got as a difference. And why does that matter? Well, when you offer people products they love, it's guaranteed that you're going to get success from them. And that's what we do, is we take your brand specific to a very accurate product forecasting level. And when I say accurate, you're talking about, as I mentioned earlier, and Jaana mentioned the start of it, what we're looking at here is just an insight into a 1.4 million variable model. And that sounds really complex and stuff, right? But let me break it down for you folks. It's really simple. What we've done is taken what are 57 variables of any type of SKU. And that varies, obviously, whether it's a bag, whether it's a pair of sneakers, whatever it happens to be. And then what we combine that with is over the 150 different decision-making variables. You put those things together and you've got the ability to score every single product that's going through your system and to be able to predict what people want in the future. So when you can understand there's those two audiences that we looked at earlier, it predicts which SKU that they're going to want in the future. And that can expand to obviously various different SKUs. This is just a sample to give you an idea about what it's looking at. I mean, this is just a hugely exciting world to be in, because what you're unpacking is something that both Jaana's team and my team, and why we've partnered up and started to find such success, is just having a love of fashion and style and people's identity and paring it down to, well, what does it mean psychologically? How can we understand people's emotional intelligence about how they make decisions, which is, you know, from my world, pretty cool. And it means, you know, the style that people will love now and the style they'll love next season. The joke that I always make, that I've been telling for far too long, because I talk about, you know, when I was 18, I was wearing bucket hats. And when I was 19, I stopped. And I tried again when I was 45 and realized it didn't work. So we humans are always in a state of change. So what the Trend Matrix does, it's designed to follow your consumers alongside your catalog so that you can keep up with that pace of change and to be in front of it. Really cool. Now, again, I want to go back to where I started with, is like, speak your customer's language. Wouldn't that be exciting if you understood? And this is not overlaying or coming in the way of your brand tone of voice or anything like that. What it is actually understanding, okay, here's an example for what we've done with the conversion optimization thesaurus. And when we talk about 35 shopping decision-making variables, that's a trigger for me. That's a psychological trigger, because those 35 things are actually 35 academic disciplines that we've then decoded that are all parts of how humans make decisions. So it's a trigger where I could bore you with science, kids, but I'm not going to do that. Not today anyway. But here's an affirmation bias example for a client. And here's a temptation sample. And here's an identity sample. And what you're looking at here is really simple. We've got a huge database that creates word banks, phrases, and conversion techniques that then gets passed not just into our copywriting, and that is native, by the way. I mentioned it earlier, but you're talking about one of the biggest things that we've come across with brands is they're doing direct translation, whether they're based out of the UK or Germany, wherever it happens to be. They're doing a direct translation of their copy out to other markets. So it has no cultural relevance. You lose that kind of nuance of what people are looking for. And we've actually codified culture into this as well. So you understand from the ground up how different cultures make different decisions. So, and it all connects into your brand and your consumer's reward system. Because if you can put those things together, and that's why I'm emphasizing the fact that that all the things that we create is specific to each client. So when you see your word banks, for example, it wouldn't have this language. You would have affirmation bias, you'd have temptation, you'd have identity, but the words would be different because how you stand in the market is different to this sample that we're looking at. And what you get to see is a lot of things that you'd get used to very quickly that are really simple to understand. Because if you look at these audiences here, these are not difficult things. You're not seeing tons of data and tons of numbers. That's our job, is to translate that behind the scenes. And we've got the copywriters, we've got the designers, you've got the creative, you've got the trend components. You saw all the stuff that Jaana took us through. It's this kind of stuff that takes you to that point of control and creativity, because nobody wants to steal any of that. That's the fallacy about AI. That's when you were talking about the chat gaps and what Kate took us through earlier, is that the concept of AI is too linear when it comes to mathematics. So mathematical psychology is my skill set. It's a highly unusual skill set to have because I literally built as a research technique within psychology. I didn't build it, but it was already there. But not a lot of people are aware of it. And it is about human decision making. And that's the huge opportunity that you've got, is that you don't have to understand the science of everything. You just have to understand what it is that people are looking for and speak more to them in that way without taking it away from who you are. So you create off the chats desirability and love, because I'll let you in on one scientific secret, and I promise it's not too geeky, not too sciencey, but the way that we think about brands is the same way that we think about friends. The same neurological setup. It goes to the same pathways within the brain. So if you think about that, think about a brand that you used to love and don't think about anymore. What did they do? We don't really know, right? We say, oh, I used to love them, but we can't define what it is that they stopped doing. And most of the time, what is they chip away at the friendship that we've got for them, the love that we've got for them. And we want to spend less time with them, which means that the brain doesn't think of them as often. So if you think about that, I just spoke about brands, but think about a friend that you used to have, that you used to hang about with all the time. And the greatest test I think of is you'll have a friend that you go for, let's say you go for a pizza with every Friday night, and they suddenly change it to Thai food, and you find out whether you prefer the friend or Thai or the food, just as a little bit of fun. But that's a huge part about what you can think about, is if you understand what it is that makes people love you more, they'll want to hang out with you more often. So they'll walk through your doors more often. They'll come onto your website more often. And that's the key part about what we do with your assets. And the formula that we've got is if you can combine and understand what the perfect products are, show them with gorgeous assets, and tempt them with authentic language that doesn't take you away from who you are, actually doubles down on who you are, then that's where you create love at the center. So how can we connect with an immature marketplace? So this is an Italian footwear brand, and we got huge results from there because what we allowed them to understand was, what does this audience actually look for? Because this was their first step out of Europe. So we could design a program that was more culturally aware to a brand launching in a continent they'd never been in before. This is $1 billion jewelers. So this is actually a chronological order of the results to give you an idea of how the trend matrix works. So it builds over time. We understand shopping personalities, but we also understand different loyalty levels, different discount levels, and that has a huge psychological basis to it. So once you get past brand, which is really a tick box in the brain, you'll have a lot of people, like when we worked with a really well-known luxury jeans company, they had 120,000 people in their database that had only ever bought jeans at full price. And those same people had only ever bought t-shirts at a discount. So if you think about that, it really helps you understand that when we make decisions, the brain has got a categorization against products. So the brand gets us through the door, but then we might be fixed-minded because we've only ever tried their t-shirts or we've only ever tried their jeans. So it's how do you convince people more? And that comes down to your loyalty and feelings. So then we built the truly automated one-to-one SKU selection model, which brought in 53 million per year. And then from that, you can understand where to stop wasting money on ads, which is a great thing, right? Because you know that you can relax a little bit and understand who your audience is and therefore who to acquire. And that's a huge component about what we do. And then this was for one of the world's top 5 sportswear brands, is who should see what. So this is an example of when we're building audiences. This is an algorithmic combination of 5 core product types per gender based on the matrix that we just looked at, 2 shopping personalities, and they're always winning high impulse. And I'll tell you why impulse is always winning, is because it's a new market for people to understand. Because we humans have got the desire that we want within the fashion space, right? To represent our identity, to refresh our clothing, but we've also got an impulse component within our brain. And once you understand who your low, medium, high impulse people are in your database, you can double down on it. We've got over 60 different case studies that prove, like the Send example, where you've got revenue growth which actually doubled, that when you understand that audience and have that scoring model in place, you can understand what to drive people to, and that gets more impulse behavior. And your impulse competition is not your regular competitors, so you think about it, it's the human reward system. So when somebody wants a reward, if they're not thinking of you, you're not in their impulse range, right? So it's a very powerful tool within there. And then you've got the fact that what comes out the back of all of this, and we've not looked at any data, we've not really spoken about AI too much because it doesn't matter. What matters is if you can get me to understand who my consumers are, who my brand really represents, which consumers want what I've got, then you can start to understand how to really represent yourself with this gorgeous imagery, right? So you've got everything from your asset creation to your digital storytelling to engage in e-commerce presentation and flow. But that can also go into your store windows, or what you put in your store windows, or even what you stock in your stores, which is what we do for people. So we wrap an amazing bubble around each store, for example, and we say, right, this is what your out-of-home advertising should look like. This is what drives more footfall. If you show polo shirts completely buttoned up, you'll get a 33% increase in footfall. We know that for a fact because that was one of the results that we got for the jean company that I spoke about earlier. And don't forget that you can get some actionable insights from all of this, right? And you would understand the why of your decision-making of your audiences. It's very consumer-led, it's very versatile, it's hyper-targeted, it's omni-channel, and it will get you the sale. So the fact that we do that complementary test, why do we do that? Because we don't want to take up tons of your time. Nobody wants to hear about tons of other case studies. What you want is a company that can invest itself and say, forget about AI, forget about technology, forget about anything other than we can help you understand your consumers better than what you have, and it'll be proven. And when you come into market, that you couldn't just say we've got the greatest tool in the world, because people are tired of it. People are tired of hearing that technology can solve everything. And at the end of the day, it's not technology that makes us great at what we do. The technology allows us to understand where to focus our thinking, which still means that we're elevating the emotional intelligence of your team, of our team. And that's why this partnership works so well. So you can have 25 actionable insights, understanding consumers better. It's huge. The test is 100% guaranteed. It's new information about you, your customers, and your marketplace. And how it works is really simple. You provide us a sample of data. It's completely clean. So we're GDPR clean. We're PI clean if anyone's on from the States. And then the Trends Matrix prepares the insights, and you join us for an unexpected tons of aha moments on your market and your customer base. And we don't hold back on that. Thank you, Jaana.
Thanks, Martin. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was really exciting stuff. And now if anyone needs to jump off, you can go ahead and jump off, or we can take some questions. You now have a chance to ask further questions on these tools. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed that, or put some feedback comments. So if you would like to get these 25 actionable insights for your company, you can just simply email Annabelle at Transstop and mention the 25 insights, and we'll get back to you on that. And on the questions, while we are waiting, if anyone has questions, I have one, Martin, which I know that sometimes people wonder, all of this sounds fantastic, but how much data and work is actually required from the brand to create these 25 insights? I was surprised how easy it is. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so it is very simple and straightforward. First of all, we support any brand with doing it, but the data doesn't need to be presented in a particular format. We do data cleansing, and we are a customer data platform that you get free of charge within the insights, but our clients get that as free as well, which is another bonus because we've pulled together tons of different technology. But to answer your question, it's a sample of your membership database, it's a sample of your catalog, and it's a sample of your transactions, again, with no personal information and no individual customer information. We've always been very keen from the very start when we started the R&D that we were going to be GDPR clean, because at the end of the day, cookies don't work. They're not solving anything. If they were, then you wouldn't have 98.81% of ads being disengaged.
And it's right that brands don't even have to do any sort of big transfers or anything. They can just provide a read-only access to those parts of the reporting, isn't it? So it's very simple.
Absolutely.
Great. And what can you tell us a little bit about what sources people can use for this? Where can this customer information come from?
I mean, it depends what you're dealing with, but everything flows from digital through to the stores and things like that. So it could be your website analytics, it could be your CRM, it could be your advertising. Sometimes people want us to do insights right across the brand, and other times they say, well, could we just look at this area because we have major problems here? And that's how free and clear it is, because it's got a human at the center of it. If you understand the humans, then we can focus the 25 insights against any channel that you want us to, or you can just set us free and just say, just tell me everything you can about our brand, our products, and our consumers.
And for sure, there are always those insights that brands don't have any idea what their consumers are like. It's super interesting stuff.
Yeah. And then the final point for me is that once we get that data, we vastly expand it. So when you understand your consumer's decision making, generally we're increasing any client's data a minimum of 150 times what they've currently got, which sounds like a huge number, but it's very practical. If you remember what I said, we're taking SKUs and creating 57 variables against them. So if you don't have that information, you don't have the 150 decision-making variables of consumers, then it vastly expands it in a very practical, easy to understand way, which hopefully came across today.
Yeah, right. And it really brings the psychology in which you don't get from other tools. Well, if there aren't any questions from the audience, there is one. Batia is asking, do you want to unmute and ask your question in person?
Hi, yes, I'm Batia from South Africa. Sorry if there's a bit of noise in the background. There are children around. I just wanted to know, when looking at consumers and audience profiles, are you looking at current audiences within the brand, or do you look at the data from the country, or, a localized look at consumers in general who would fit the profile to create a larger audience? Or is this just drawing from existing customer audiences of the brand?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I mean, at the end of the day, where we start with the complementary insights that we spoke about today would absolutely be against your brand. And it's always super interesting because it's never who you necessarily expect your consumers to be. This is especially true if you're in luxury fashion, for example, where what we often find is that brands are focused at high income, but high income as a bracket because they think that's who's buying their products. Whereas you've actually got a huge portion of your database, which is in the lower income bracket that's buying it, because that's been a huge change about consumer decision-making and behaviors over the past 10 years, where you get a lot of people in a lower income bracket that are buying the occasional high-end luxury product and what used to be known as high street fashion, but now more like fast fashion for the rest of their control points. So if you imagine that if you're in different brackets, it's different ways that you could speak to people. But at the end of the day, the first place that you want to start is understanding your database, because that's your consumers. And then we can start marrying it with who you think it should be, and then we could find growth opportunity.
And then from the TrendStop side, we bring the global analysis of what's happening with the fashion consumers in general and what is popular globally. And so the beauty of this system is that you learn what your consumer is doing at the moment, and then you get the overlay of the global trends. And we can connect those. We can look at who is your customer and then what are the upcoming trends that will resonate with them. So it basically connects everything very beautifully.
Does that cover your question? Okay. Yeah. Okay, we're good.
But yes, thanks for asking the question. Really nice to have you and glad you enjoyed it. So I guess we've covered a lot, and if there are any other questions, you can go ahead and ask, but if not, then we'll wrap up for now, and we look forward to hearing from you on this insights report. Just email Annabelle if you'd like to go ahead to get some of these surprising insights about your own consumer, and we look forward to speaking further.
Yeah, don't forget it's complimentary, folks. Otherwise, I hope you really enjoyed the session. Thanks for having me on, Jaana. It's a real privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks for the nice comments, Brian. It's a great session. So interesting. So thank you, Martin. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm always super inspired, and I hope everyone today has been as well. Thanks, guys, for all the nice thank yous online as well. Great to see everyone. Thanks for joining, and see you again next time. Take care.